911, where's your emergency?
Hello, I think my friend drank a little too much.
Okay, is he responsive?
He was, and then he's like kind of laid back, started passing out.
Okay, is he still breathing?
Yes, like he's
Okay.
he's pretty in and out.
45 Mill Street was a really touching story, a really jarring story. Me personally, to be so young and, you know, to have a sister involved in Greek life and to have heard stories about like friends, siblings and stuff, you know, it's there. And I vaguely remembered when this happened on the news. And it was, oh no, it's just a jarring reminder. So content wise, like that's where I'm at with this. And I think you do a really good job, telling the story, telling the dangers of like hazing and hazing culture. And you lay out the story of someone's like tragic passing in a way that is really dignified, and you get the family. I want to highlight the family and say it was really brave of them to share their story, and really uplift you all for doing this in such a like a sensitive way while still like really talking about how serious it is. It came together to be a really moving piece, a really sad piece, but like still incredibly informative, which is, you know, what you want for a documentary, where you really lean into the facts of what happened, the emotional draw of this, and this call to action of like, we need to stop this at the end, and you put that together very, very well. So this is a very, very well done piece.
45 Mill Street was, a lot. I was really impressed with the family right from the beginning, that they were talking about their child, brother, boyfriend that had passed, and all of them had smiles on their faces, talking about him and remembering him. And they were so proud, and I was like, wow, what an awful thing for a family to go through, and they are still able to smile through it. And I know that some time has passed, but it was, although they were talking about a really heavy subject matter, you could just feel how much love that they had, and how much happiness and joy that Collin brought them through their stories. And when you hear what happened, it's so upsetting and it's so infuriating. And I just thought all of it was presented so well. And the ending, you know, there was as happy an ending as you could get, which is that, you know, even after death, Collin was able to make a difference, and they were able to use that horrific incident and turn it into something that will protect children going forward, because the sentencing structure just is so unjust. And they're doing really incredible work, really important work to protect our kids, to protect our boys. Yeah, and I know that that's something that Collin would have been a part of should he have had been alive. And I know that he would be really, really happy to have his name attached to this. So I just am sending so much love to this family. And I think this is a really important piece to watch and to acknowledge and educate yourself about what goes on. And now learning about this bill that is now in effect, how you can do your research in order to prevent this from happening to somebody that you love. So wonderful job overall, and sending so much love to that family.
This reviews for 45 Mill Street. This documentary is so heartbreaking. To learn of these archaic practices still happening to this day ridiculous hazing rituals for no purpose whatsoever, masked with brotherhood. The families that are destroyed following the death of such a young person, Collin. He was such a special person, and how the testimonials of the family and close friends are really spread with regret and guilt, how they think they could have done better for him, how sad they are that he's no longer there, and how they involved a lawyer to try and find out the truth about their son's death. It's just sad to see this type of institutions exploiting the need to belong, the need to feel accepted in young people, and it's hopeful to see this can be eradicated through some of those policy and lawmaking or changes that are done through this type of raising awareness of the danger this is. And the TED Talk from the mom, it's just a lot of efforts that are put into this, and I am glad to see some positive results.
45 Mill Street does a fantastic job of turning a news story, an abstracted tragedy, into a real human portrait. The film spends a lot of time fleshing out Collin in his life, his relationships. And what that does is help us to understand the full magnitude of the tragedy that actually happened to a real person. The way that his family talk about him is utterly moving. And it's kind of, the raw emotion does make it hard to watch at times, but it really does help you understand the magnitude of the loss and the tragedy and the horror of its arbitrariness. The fact that it easily could have been avoided. And when it starts getting into the stuff about how the legal system doesn't want to prosecute the fraternity guys because it doesn't want to ruin their lives, it really tells you whose life matters and whose life doesn't, which is quite angering. But rage, as depicted in the film, is never impotent. It's amazing to see the work that Collin's mom's doing, taking that rage and using it as a fuel to go out there, do amazing work, and try and actually stop these sort of tragedies ever happening again. Shows you how you can use that kind of anger as a tool for making the world better.
45 Mill Street. This dropped us right into the devastating reality of what happened to this young man pledging for a fraternity. It is a horror that I think we still hear far too often. And I hope with films like this showing the impact that fraternities and hazing culture can have on families, on loved ones, on full communities, for something so silly, for a drug, for a false sense of security and purpose, is devastating. I think this was really well crafted in slowly unfolding what happened, and that looming unease of knowing ultimately where we end up. I was really touched by the family's ability to share and their openness and their honesty in doing so. It made it a very devastating piece, and it was really important to hear from a variety of sources, from the school, from other parents who have been affected, from all of his siblings and how they're affected by it. And hopefully seeing something like this will make parents perk up and question supporting their children joining these fraternities, or maybe making the step to stop this along the way. And for those heading to school to reconsider what they want to invest their time and potentially their life in. So really heartbreaking piece, but exceptionally well crafted.
45 Mill Street definitely hit a lot closer to home than usual, specifically because of how young Collin was, in the sense that we are of similar age. So it was very much a slap in the face, in the sense that he was a year younger than me at the time that this happened. I was a sophomore in college around that point. And it really put into perspective just how scary, just how dangerous it can all be. I know for me, when I was in college, I never had that intention of going into Greek life. Um, but I had always witnessed a lot of how the college promoted Greek life. The college is always very gung ho about anti hazing and uh, conducting your fraternity in a smart and safe manner. Uh, and I remember thinking, oh wow, because you hear the horror stories about hazing, and going to college and seeing all of these like assemblies and presentations and like posters everywhere, basically advertising anti-hazing. You think, oh wow, okay, so we really have control over this. And then I remember I would occasionally like talk to other people about the issue with hazing, and some of them were actually in the Greek life, and they would kind of just scoff at that, uh, which kind of made me realize the grim reality with that was just because the college is making an effort to promote anti-hazing does not mean the issue is going to go away. Does not mean that they're going to stop with these habits, these behaviors. They're just going to do it more discreetly. And I think that's the scariest thing about this documentary, is that they knew what they were doing is wrong. Especially because the first thing they did was they didn't go to the police. They went to their superiors, their higher ups, to try to figure out what was the best course of action. This documentary is definitely, it shows how dangerous hazing culture is, and I definitely think that the Collins law, that should definitely be more, not just in Ohio. Like, I feel like each state should have their own precedent towards publicly showcasing any stains on a fraternity's record, because like I said, we can promote anti-hazing to the moon and back, but that's just going to make it that they do it behind closed doors. But anytime they're caught, it needs to be showcased that that's not okay. A death should never be reciprocated with a light slap on the wrist.
45 Mill Street is a really well done documentary. It has a really great approach into showing the family and Colin's life, and then the impact of the fraternity, and even the fallout and the lack in the legal aspect that the family dealt with. And I think the story is really well rounded and well told. It hits on all the key portions of the emotional impact, the legal impact, and life after. And it's a really informative, really interesting documentary to watch.
This was a really well constructed documentary on a very unfortunate topic and circumstance. I kind of remember when this was making news, and I didn't really follow up so much. So it was very informative for me to learn about the legislation that they passed, Collins Law. I think it's great. It's unfortunate that obviously the law had to be literally like written in blood, as they say, but that at least there is some sort of silver lining, somewhat positive outcome from this just tragic unfortunate event. It was also just constructed really well. The way we got to hear from the different family members, we got to humanize Collin and get to know him personally through his family. That was a really nice touch, and I think it was really important to not only the structure of the documentary, but the um, just the impact it had. It's easy to just summarize a story and then say, "Hey, there's been a law passed," but just the thoughtfulness and construction of the documentary really went a long way to uh, drive that message home, and it's an important message and it's a great message, and hopefully there have or will be other states that follow in Ohio's footsteps, at least in this regard. So yeah, really, just a great documentary.
This one is a tearjerker. Going into this piece, you know that all good things must come to an end. We start this journey diving into the inner workings of the Waite family, and they do an amazing job at building the foundation and their dynamics of their day to day living. They kind of do a great job at showing off who Collin was before he enters the fraternity doors. These moments are on the brighter side. And so when you hear the inevitable news, honestly, I was sobbing. This man was going to make a difference in the world, and you physically see this as you see the massive line of people at the funeral home giving him a spine chilling send off. This dives into acceptance, how far you're willing to go to be accepted in a community. This is about abuse and hazing awareness. Time and time again, you hear the family members mention the statement that you never think it's going to happen to you until it does. And it didn't take his death for him to make a difference. But because of his passing, as the story continues to shed light and come to light over these horrific counts of not taking accountability, kind of provides an opportunity to make a difference in the laws of Ohio. Collin's law now exists to keep incidents such as these at bay.